Dual wielding is awesome, but it sucks in D&D 5th edition, and I'm here to give you a simple, elegant, and balanced fix that'll get all you dual wielders out there excited. I'm gonna hit you with the basics of what rules as written says, and then give you my homebrew and break it all down and what the math says of why this is so balanced and perfect compared to other weapon options. Then at the very end, I'll give you my personal twist that I do at my game table for dual wielding, and it's a sneak peek into my martial combat upgrade system. So here we go. Here's what the rules as written requirements are for dual wielding or two weapon fighting. You need two light weapons, one in each hand, and you can take a bonus action to make an offhanded attack. You make the attack roll as usual, but you do not add your strength or dexterity modifier to the damage of your offhand because it's your offhand. And it also works for light throwing weapons too, as far as your offhand goes. And all of this really makes sense. I totally get it, and I see what they're going for. But there's some big problems when you compare it to wielding one two-handed weapon or a sword and shield. The biggest and most glaring problem is when you compare this to a two-hander, which I feel like, as far as damage goes, if you're sacrificing a shield, not taking that extra 2 armor class, you should be able to deal some damage with both weapons in your hand, just like you would a two-hander. Because when you're a martial class, which is mainly who we're talking about here, and you get that extra attack with a two-hander, you get to swing the two-hander 2 times. But for those poor dual wielders with 2 weapons, they only can attack with their main hand, and then again with their main hand, and then only once, with spending a bonus action for their offhand that also gets a penalty. Do you see why that just feels so bad and unfair? Also, compared to anyone with 2 extra attacks with a shield, they just get a shield for free, and they also can use their bonus action for whatever they want. Maybe do some cool shield stuff. And those two-handed guys get Great Weapon Master, which is a super awesome feat. Now, I touched on it a little bit, but a big problem is the bonus action economy that dual wielders run into, because they always have to make that choice between making a wimpy offhanded swing, which I know you can take feats for, but I'm not talking about that, or do some bonus action thing as a part of their core class. When compared to their two-handed users, they can just do it because they can just attack with their big old two-hander. It's just not fair, guys. In my opinion, there should be a risk and reward of the choices here. If you want to be more defensive, take on that shield. That's a cool choice. If you want to do more damage, you should have options of how you want to do that. And yes, I know with dual wielding, you can attack 2 different targets, and there are some advantages there, but I don't think at all they come close to a two-hander, especially with extra attacks, which we'll get into my final tip in the video, and bonus actions. Here's a simple example of why this is such a problem, then I'll share with you my homebrew tip to fix all this stuff. Let's compare a fighter with a great sword with a strength of 5, so he gets a +5 onto it, would be a 2d6 great sword +5, compared to a dual wielder wielding 2 different swords for 1d6 each with a +5 strength bonus. A really great comparison because it's 2d6 +5 compared to 2d6 +5. But the two-handed wielder gets to take 1 action to make 1 attack for 2d6 +5. For the two-handed fighter, he'd have a 2d6, which is the average of 7 damage, +5 for a total of 12 damage with his attack. No bonus action required, and if he got another attack, he'd deal another 12 damage. But for two-weapon fighting, we have a 1d6 +5 for the main hand and just a 1d6 for the offhand, assuming all these attacks are landing. But this character had to spend a bonus action to use their offhand to be able to do the same damage, because those 2d6 +5 is the same exact thing, but you needed to spend an entire bonus action, which in a lot of cases can be a pretty big deal. Let's throw extra attack in there now. So this two-handed user would deal 12 damage 2 times with their 2 attacks with their two-hander. Is this too much? But that dual wielder now can do the same 12 damage with their main hand, spend a bonus action to use their offhand for that 12, but when they get their extra attack, they can only attack with their main hand for 1d6 +5. So that one main-handed attack with the 1d6 +5 would be an average of 3.5 damage from the dice, +5 from the actual strength modifier for 8.5 damage, which is definitely less than the 12, and overall is less damage with a bonus action that they had to spend to deal less damage. So here is my super simple fix for dual wielding. When you make an attack with a light weapon you're holding in one hand, you may also freely attack with a different weapon in your other hand along with that attack. Now, you still do not add the strength or dexterity modifier to your offhand, just like the rules as written, unless it's a negative modifier for some reason. And I also keep the two-weapon fighting style exactly the same and the dual wielder feat exactly the same. So basically, all I've done is just take away that bonus action and let you, and this makes sense, I'm holding 2 weapons. I attack with someone right in front of me, and I just swing the other one. It's what I'm doing. Just like the person holding one weapon swinging both of their arms forward, now I'm holding 2 weapons, swinging both of my arms. Why is this not a thing? It just makes sense when you're swinging your swords to be able to swing both of them, and then with an extra attack, you get it. You'd make an attack and another attack for your action, but then, ooh, you hit level 5 in your martial class, you get an extra attack. So you would get another 2 swings. Now, if you're freaking out and this sounds broken and it's too overpowered, I got some math for you. Let's go to the desk. All right, here's some D&D weapon math for you. So this is for 2 attacks. You have blue is the standard weapon with no extra feats or any modifications or fighting styles. Red is if you have a fighting style for that specific thing. Yellow is the feat for that specific thing, and green is you have both. You've really dialed everything in and you're really trying to deck out this specific weapon or weapon style, you could say. One-handed weapon is just a straight up one-handed weapon. We're not even going to talk about that now. That's obviously going to be lesser than everything else. Two-handed weapons is a literal two-handed weapon, 2HW, and two-weapon fighting is this one right here. So these last 2 things down here are the 2 homebrews. We already talked about my new 2-weapon fighting proposal for the whole no bonus action thing. But what this is, just so everybody's on the same page, is I also have a homebrew for Great Weapon Master, where instead of just a simple -5 and you add 10 damage every single time, because at low levels, plus 10 damage is a lot, and a -5 is also a lot. So my homebrew fix for it, which you might have heard before, is you minus your proficiency bonus and then add double your proficiency bonus. So early levels, you're minusing 2, because your proficiency bonus is only 2, and you add +4 damage, which feels a lot more applicable. And then when you're at higher levels and you have even bigger numbers, your proficiency bonus is 6. So it'd be a -6 on your attack and a +12 for your damage. So that's why you're going to see these numbers inflate up a lot here. So the one thing that this does not take into consideration is your chance to hit. Okay, so that's going to be a whole nother much more math. I'm trying to keep this simple here with a pretty little chart. So it is taking in consideration that you're always hitting. So if you are using a two-handed weapon, constantly using Greater Weapon Master with a minus to your attack roll, you're going to be hitting less often. And if you're using 2 weapons, you're going to be able to also attack different things. So keep that in mind too. And if you finish something off, keep that in mind. Taking off the 2 homebrews for right now so you can truly see what the rules as written is. Focus on this blue line right here. This blue line, the weakest is one-handed weapon, which would be about right here. And the 2 weapon, oh, you have another hand in your offhand? Great. You get a little bit more damage. That just feels awful. It feels so awful because we're talking 2 attacks with main hand attack with a one-handed weapon compared to main hand with a little old offhand attack. That's why it's just so little bit of a difference between literally 1 weapon in 1 hand compared to dual wielding. That's just sad to me. And then look at two-handed fighting. It's a big difference, which I get it. You're wielding a giant 2-handed weapon. That's very dangerous, very powerful, but not this much of a difference. So again, focus on the blue here with me. Now, let's look at what the difference is without this thing. Now, look at this. Your new two-handed weapon fighting brings it actually literally exactly in line perfectly, which makes sense because you attack with your 2 weapons, 1d6, 1d6. Just like the big two-handed weapon did, and then you would do it again. So they're the exact same, and they are balanced, and they don't spend a bonus action. And if you notice here for my two-handed homebrew, this is a little bit bigger than the regular because this is considering you are actually at max level, and this would be a +12 onto your damage, so it is a little bit more for this. But what I'm trying to show you here is two-handed weapons still have their place as an all-in, big, huge swings for big damage, whereas you have a more versatile dual wielding that can attack multiple things. It just feels right, especially if you start taking into consideration the fighting styles and feats that allow more armor class whenever you're dual wielding and allow for big swings, and it lets you fully play into the flavor of these things. Last thing I want to say about this chart is look at the difference of the feat makes for the two-handed weapon of how much the yellow bumps up. That's the entire big difference of adding that huge chunk of +12 and assuming both hit. So again, this is assuming everything lands, which is not always going to be the case. There'd have to be a whole bunch more math involved to go down that road. But what I'll also say about 2-weapon fighting to keep in mind are magic items. If you have 1 item in your hand, the +2 magic weapon, and the other one's not, and it's normal, now it's going to be a little bit different compared to the two-handed weapon wielder with a 1 two-hander. It's a +2 weapon. That's a little easier for them too. So again, I don't think two-handed people here are going to be hurting at all. But in the extreme case, if you have 1 person with 2 magic weapons, each with different magic powers and different pluses to them, and they're super strong and they can attack multiple times, maybe they're a fighter or something, and they can. It's very advantageous. So if you're worried about that, I got a fix for your two-handers. But again, keep in mind you got to find the right balance for what feels right at your table. Okay, now let me address some concerns just in case, because I'm already kind of predicting the comment section down below. If you're worried about now two-handed weapons falling off, especially when we start dealing with magical weapons or something like that, because that is where if you have 2 magic weapons, both in each hand, that can lead to some pretty crazy stuff. But again, you're the dungeon master, you're in control of that. But if you want to give those two-handed weapon wielders a chance, I already have a homebrew that I told in another video where you can add 1.5 your strength modifier into your attacks. So if you you have +4 strength with a two-hander that you put your whole body into, both arms into one weapon, it would make sense to add a +6 instead. 1.5 times your strength modifier. So you get the base 4, and then 50% of that is 2, total of 6. Okay. And if you do this, it pulls two-handers right alongside dual wielding for 2 super easy fixes to balance them both out. But again, do with these as you see fit. And the last thing I want to talk about is I know people are going to talk about fighters. Oh my God, fighters. You'll have whatever the action surge person would get, like what, 12 attacks? Let's say they get 3, but then 6. Action surge, yeah, 12. And people have also said, oh, but what about a bonus action? Can I, if I'm dual wielding and I take my action to attack and I get 2 swings for free, what about my bonus action? Can I make a bonus action to make a swing so I get 3? No, an attack is a very big deal. And as far as the balance of action economy and stuff, just like a two-handed person swings their weapon once, that's their attack. They can't, oh, can I bonus action? Hit them with the hit. No, that's not part of what an action is. It's not part of what a bonus action can be. Leave that to the monks and other things. And I have homebrew fixes for monks and fighters because I think fighters have way too many attacks in the first place, and that's just crazy to let one player roll that many. Crazy. And then monks need some love too. But now you've stuck around this long in the video, and I do appreciate that. It really helps the algorithm when you stay around, share with your friends, hit the like button, all that good stuff. But here is my solution for what I do at my game table. I wanted to share with you guys a very easily applicable thing for your games, but for me, I tie this to the extra attack action. But for me personally, here's what I do with this that's added an extra level here. Now, I don't do this all the time. Sometimes I've ran it, just like I said. Everyone can do it, but I feel like some classes should not be able to just dual wield like this. So what I've done before is I tie this ability to be able to make this extra attack with your offhand for free. Instead of having it cost a bonus action, it's totally free if you have the extra attack feature. This is kind of like the Tasha's Cauldron of Everything bonus features that you get to be able to have on top of what you already get. So those martial characters that are more martially, as the spellcasters can do all these powerful spells, the martial people can do cool martial stuff like better grappling, better bonus actions, better attack options as far as prone, shoving, grappling, all that kind of stuff. Because I also don't like rogues having this double attacks for free. If you totally do and you want to have your rogues be even stronger, go for it. But I really like the bonus action choice for a rogue so that everyone else in the game has to choose to use a bonus action for their offhand, and now the rogue has to decide to attack again with a bonus action or use it as their cunning action or whatever. So I personally tie this free thing to the extra attack for the martial classes that it would make sense for them to be able to do. Paladins, rangers, monks, fighters, any other subclass that picks up an extra attack that would make sense, like a valor bard or whatever, to be able to attack with 2 weapons. Easier with no bonus action requirement. Now this does feel bad levels 1 through 4 for those dual wielders, and they're still stuck with that lame bonus action that they have to spend. But keep in mind, that's rules as written, so they're getting an upgrade either way. You just can choose if you want to give it to them earlier or not. Timeout. This whole dual wield homebrew that I just went into is a sneak peek into my martial class upgrade system that I want to be able to have for all martial classes to be able to spice up what they can do in combat instead of just walking up to something and attacking it twice. Because oh my God, that's so lame for those players to have to deal with instead of feeling bad when they're trying to spice things up. I have an entire system I'm working on right now and it's not ready yet. I'm really trying to polish it off, do some more play testing, other stuff like that. But the first time it's going to be released is to my patrons. My patrons are the people that support me here the most and let me literally be able to do this more and more. I'm making 2 videos a week now. I would not be able to do that without my patrons. I have another bonus video that I'm making for my patrons. There's so much more content that they're letting me be able to do, and this is my way to say thank you. I make monthly PDFs with a different theme every time, and there's going to be a martial theme where I'm going to have multiple martial subclasses, martial magic weapons, and lots of other martial things, including this system that's going to be in my PDFs in the near future. And since we're talking sneak peeks here, I have a really huge thing that I have never announced in a video before, but this summer I have plans for a huge Kickstarter of D&D 5.5 Dungeon Coach Edition. It's going to be absolutely huge and a potential game changer for this channel and lots of other things going on. So stay tuned for that. That's all I'm going to say about it right now. So I hope you like this dual wield fix. Try it out yourself. Your players, I'm sure, will love it, especially because there's so many times where I've wanted to make a dual wield character, or the character in my head that I've wanted to make. It would make sense for them to dual wield, but I just know I would be better off with a two-hander. So myself as a player, usually, yeah, I still go in and do the thing that makes more sense for my character, but I can't help it feel bad for that I know that I'm losing out on, especially those times where I have to spend a bonus action to attack, and now I can't do something else. So if you want more homebrew videos, click right here. Join Patreon right here for those monthly PDFs. And until next time, stay creative and think outside that box. Peace.